And you know it's gonna be a good day when a car gets towed into the shop. And not just that, it's towed in backwards. We had to push it up the ramp, but it's finally in here. And let me tell you, this car's been through it. The owner of this car is a buddy of mine, and he drives it. And I mean, launching it is automatic, but he still launches, burns out, donuts, you name it, he does it. And guess what? Because of that, the car got towed in here from 5 hours away. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna try to get it up on the lift, even though it's backwards. I am just so spoiled. I can't be working on jack stands no more, you know? So I gotta put it up on the lift. We're gonna see what's wrong with it. I have a hunch because he did send me some pictures, and the car still turns on, even though it's super loud, which you're about to hear. Turns on and everything, but it will not drive under its own power. So one of the axles looks like it's kind of popped out, and let's just hope that's the only issue. Let's turn it on and see how loud it is. Cover your ears. So we have some difficulty starting. I'm pretty sure he's on E85, that's why. And this is definitely not a recommended method of lifting a car on an asymmetric lift.
Too low.
Too low, and I need to go further back. So we gotta turn it back on. And I still don't think it's properly set up for the lift because it's too far this way. But we're gonna try our best. Oh man, I pushed it too far back now. Gotta go back forward.
I'm gonna kick your ass.
I'm not as skinny as I used to be. Take that back. Still skinny. All right, let's see. You gotta be shitting me. I need to move the car that way. All right, moment of truth. Oh, don't. This is why you don't do burnouts and launches and brake launches, because you snap axles. So I believe this is his second, third, maybe fourth, maybe even fifth diff. We lost count of how many axles he's been through, but this axle just popped out. Now the axles on the F chassis, the F30, and a lot of the newer BMWs are a little bit different. So on most E-Series, E-chassis cars, your rear axles or half shafts, they're gonna be bolted to the output shafts on the diff. On these, they actually just snap in. Almost like most front wheel drive cars where the axle just snaps in, there's like a little snap ring that holds it in place. Same concept for the rear diff on here. So what I'm thinking, hopefully this is all it is, the axle just snapped out, and that's why the axle popped out. And since this is an open diff, whenever you put the car into gear, it's gonna go to the least method of resistance first. So with the axle being popped out, there's no resistance on this side, so it's just turning that gear and not sending any power to that side. And that's probably what's going on, that's why we can't move it. And that also worries me because if this is only a little bit engaged, that end of the axle shaft, the stub, is gonna be completely stripped. And if that's the case, then chances are the diff inside, that gear is also stripped, which results in another diff or rebuilding this diff and another axle. There's only one way to find out though. We're gonna pull this axle out the rest of the way and see how it looks. And I'm sweating. So I'm looking over this axle and it looks kind of new. I mean, not completely new, but a little new. So I called the owner back up and I'm like, hey, you know, I've got the car up on the lift. I see that's popped out. Did you guys try to push it back in or anything? And I guess I didn't have the full story. So he had this entire axle replaced 2 hours before this popped out at a different shop. And what happened was originally he messed up one of the CV joints from Hoonigan stuff, you know what I mean? So he had that one replaced, and 2 hours later it popped out. This is a used one though, so what we're gonna do, I could probably just try to pop it back in, but I don't wanna go that route. I wanna pull this entire axle out because he told me that it popped out at full throttle 2nd gear. And this is a 8-speed transmission, 2nd gear that's still got very, very torquey. So if it popped out and it didn't pop out cleanly, chances are that spline, is that how you say it? Spline, spleen? However you say it, is all chewed up. And if that's the case, then the diff is coming out. So let's pull this axle out first. Pretty straightforward on this car. And it should be pretty easy since it was just replaced. Just gotta take out the axle nut, take off some control arms. This side's already popped out, so we'll just pop it out of the hub, bring it this way, pull the whole axle out. So get right to it. So it's definitely still in there. It's not fully out. I think it's stuck in the gear inside the diff. Yep. All right, we still gotta pull it out somehow. But if it's really stuck in there, what's gonna have to happen, we'll take out the axle on this side and drop the entire diff, because that means that the diff's gonna have to be replaced. So I'm confused. Either this section of the axle completely broke off and is still inside the diff, or, no, that's what happened. There's no or. I think the section of the axle is inside the diff right now. Oh man. Let's see. Yep. Oh, you can actually see it. Come here. There you go. There's a snap ring. And there's the rest of the axle in there. Now I gotta figure out how to get everything out. That's crazy. Like, do you understand how thick that is? Like, just snapping like that. I mean, yeah, he's tuned, he's on E85, but I don't think he's pushing more than like 400 horsepower. It's crazy. Okay, actually, first let me try to get this back to holding, because I don't think it's getting back together tonight. It would be nice if it did, so we could free up the lift, but things don't always work out the way you want them to. That sucks. He just put this in, like literally, he's got 2 hours on this axle. So it's the next day, 20 degrees colder, and 20 more new parts apparently. We did get that axle pulled out last night, and the issue was this section sheared right off. So this snap ring, I'm probably calling it wrong, it's more like a retaining ring, sits inside this groove, and this is what keeps the axle engaged inside the diff, so it doesn't just pop right out. So this whole thing sheared off, this was stuck inside as well, and then this just came right out. So we were able to pull this out. I had to use some picks, some needle nose pliers, but we got it out. Now we've got a new axle. This is just an aftermarket one. It's the only thing that was available at the moment. So we're gonna put this in there. And then the owner of the car brought over some other upgrades while we were at it. Let's take a look at all those. So we've got a bunch of new control arms as well as used control arms with upgrades. So I've got all of these right here, which I took off of the driver's side since we needed to remove them to get that axle out anyways. We've got a new adjustable Megan Racing upper control arm. So this is gonna be the one that is more of a camber arm. It will adjust negative and positive camber. Then we've got these other 2 arms that are on the bottom and the back side. And then we have all the stuff for the passenger side as well, which I haven't removed the old ones yet. Then we've got these F80 control arms. So this is an F30, and the F80 control arms for the front are a little bit more of an upgrade. They do add a little bit more caster as well. So these have just upgraded bushings, upgraded ball joints, And then these are the other F80 control arms. So these are considered control arms. Those are called tension struts. Now these, the owner of the car, he actually started putting in these Turner Motorsport bushings. So for the F80 control arms to work, you do have to put a F30 bushing on this end. So he got the Turner Motorsport monoball bushings and he pressed them in, but the problem is there's a retaining ring that has to go on this side. Now the F80 control arms, this section is thicker than the F30 section, so he can't get these Spiralox rings to sit in place. There's no spot for it to go into. So we're gonna have to figure that one out yet. I'm probably gonna just end up pushing this bushing back out and probably just have to shave down some material. We really don't have that many options. And this is just more of a safety thing. These are probably pressed in there really good. They're probably gonna stay in there the whole time, but we really wanna put these in there that way, just in case if it does back out, we've got a safety measure. But we'll visit all of that after we have the whole rear end done. So now I need to put that new axle in and change all of these control arms. I'll give you guys some tips and tricks while I'm doing it. Let's get right to it. Now this new one, I think I'm gonna put this end in first and make sure it snaps in place, and then we'll get this section onto the hub. All right, so axle's in, hair's a mess, I'm sweating, because that was a lot of physical activity. I go to the gym, but like, don't prepare you for this. Now we're putting all the new control arms in, that way I can get this off of here. Definitely not the proper way to do this. You don't want to put it on a rotor, but hey, we had limited options. We had to get the stuff out, so we had to do it while we had to do it. What? That didn't make no sense. We had to do what we had to do. Now I advised the owner about these Megan Racing control arms. I've had good luck and I've had bad luck with Megan Racing control arms. It's a hit or miss. I mean, sometimes it is installation error. I've had people that put them in and didn't tighten down all those lock nuts, or they cross-threaded those actual inserts, or one, because they're adjustable on both ends, so you can move it in and out. One side's reverse threaded, the other side's normal threaded. That way when you actually move the center section, it spreads both of them out equally. But sometimes some people, when they're initially setting it, they only twist out one end and not the other one. So then when you go to adjust it, it's gonna be uneven, and what's gonna happen is one side, all the threads are gonna come out, the other side is gonna be barely, any threads coming out. And then you ruin the whole thing because it just pops out or shears. Okay, now I need to put a bolt through that.
It's been a while since the last update, but I did get those bushings into the control arm. I did have to sand down about 1/8 of an inch off of this side right here. And I got both of them in. We already finished the driver's side, but as I predicted, it did add a little bit of caster, even though we changed the thrust arm as well. As you can see, it moved the wheel forward about 1 inch. Let me show you guys the passenger side. I haven't done that one yet. But the passenger side, you can see there's a lot more space right here compared to the driver's side, where it's barely enough. I'm pretty sure it's gonna rub. I mean, he does have coilovers. He's got BC Racing coilovers on here. So with these control arm bushings, you get 2 different size spacers. You can see how this spacer's longer than this one, or wider. So you wanna put the wider one towards the inside, and you wanna do that to both. And you can see this is a fluid-filled bushing, and all the fluid leaked out already, and it's completely trashed. If you're considering F80 thrust arms and tension struts for your F30 or F22, then I would make sure you buy adjustable caster bushings. Now there are a few manufacturers that make these, like Powerflex and SPL. These bushings would go in place of the Turner monoball bushings we use and would allow you to correct the caster to center the wheel and correct the suspension geometry. Other options to correct the caster would be to get special caster or camber adjustable top hats, but they will only work with certain strut and spring combinations. Along with the F80 front arms, you will also need to extend your tie rods a fair amount. You can use the stock F30 tie rods, but if you are replacing the tie rods, I would recommend getting F80 inner tie rods as they are longer. The outer tie rod is the same on both M and non-M cars. With that being said, changing out all of the front and rear suspension arms made a huge difference on the ride quality and steering feel of this F30 with almost 170k miles. Now it's back on the road, so more fun can be had. Now I hope some of these tips and tricks will carry over into your garage. That's all for this video though. Thanks for watching, and we will see you in our next video.